I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast.
There's a place that I like to go where the sun sets fast and the night moves slow. A frame of mind and a frequency where the rhythm of life flows naturally.
Welcome to the Season 4 premiere. Today we're excited to feature Esteban Flores, the creative force behind Slow Joy. Growing up in a religious household, Esteban and his family were the heart of their church band. He stepped into whatever musical role was needed, but his true passion was the guitar. In 2020, after the loss of his mother, Esteban turned to TikTok as a way to share his music. What started as an outlet quickly gained traction, taking him from playing for 5 friends at local shows to selling out venues. Join us as we get to know Esteban's story, his journey, his music, and the rise of Slow Joy. Here he is. Okay, we're back. Another season of the Dallas Famous Podcast. We're at the Deep Ellum Community Center. I'm sitting with Esteban Flores, who is Slow Joy.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We're talking. I came aware of you because of the Jambalaya show that's coming up, but you've obviously been doing a lot more. I'm not a TikTok guy, but let's just start with the beginning. You're from New Mexico.
Yeah.
What was your early experience with sounds, music? I want to do something with it.
So it was. I've often said it's kind of like the family business. My grandpa was a pastor of this really small church.
Huh.
So the family played the music. So if the drummer didn't show up that day, you had to play drums. If the guitar player didn't show up that day, you had to play guitar.
Wow.
One of my first gifts my grandpa ever gave me was a guitar. It was just part of it. And that's a part of that experience that stuck with me in a positive light. I was like, oh wow, it's I got a lot of reps. I got to learn a lot of ear stuff that most people don't get. Take the bad and take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what started me down that path, and I just fell in love with it. My dad, he wasn't a musician, so they were like, you do sound. So it was just one of those things where everybody had something to do with the arts, and my dad was a lover of music, and he was always just so supportive. We would jam in the garage from after high school till 9 p.m. every day, just annoying all the neighbors, and he didn't care, and doing much more than even I would do, honestly.
Yeah. Nice.
Knowing how loud drums are now, I'm I don't know how you did that.
Right.
But yeah, it was just always a big part of my life. And it's been something that I've carried with me forever, and it's gone through varying levels of beauty and pursuit. And I think it turned into kind of a nasty thing for me, where I just wanted it so bad in my adult life, where I wanted to have this job so bad that I sacrificed the beauty. And it wasn't until Slow Joy came around that I finally got to enjoy the beauty again, which then the universe was like, okay, now you can have it as a job. It's this weird. Huh. The minute you give it up, then it's here you go.
I understand that. I mean, I was trying to do acting, and I quit it many times, but that's interesting. So you were pursuing music a lot, intently before this project.
Yeah, it was a dream. I left high school and was like, this is gonna be what I'm gonna do. I the reason why I came over here is because I wanted to do music. I was like, I need to find a bigger city that I can try to do music in. And it was just always this thing I wanted so bad. It was just this job that I thought was this best thing that in the world. And my music kind of blew with the wind, whatever was whatever was popular at the time, that's what I was doing. And it wasn't honest. And it wasn't, it was just chasing. And so it took until, my mom passed away in the last few years, and I, decided that I was going to be done. I was like, I can't do this. I had 2 sisters that were young, and at one point we thought they were going to move in with us. So I had to get the real job. So I did marketing, and I quit music. I was like, this isn't going to happen. And, and honestly, that is sick. Like having weekends is amazing. Like having like a 9 to 5. I ran away from it like it was a plague, and I wish I would have told myself back then it's actually pretty sick. Like you can do both. You can have a hobby that you love on the outside ends of it. Like it was great. Like I would wake up on Saturday mornings and me and my wife would get coffee. We would live our lives. And so when I was going through grief counseling, my counselor, she had recommended I use what I have to process, the tough emotions. And so like I kept having this longing of, using music, but in my mind I was like, well, it's not a pursuit anymore. I need to stay away from it. Like it was bad for me to do. Because I just had, I don't know, I feel like I had taken it and turned it into something that was not what it was meant to be for me. And so taking that time away from it, once I was finally recommended to do it, I started to make music that was just for me, which ended up being like this heavier sound, because I didn't care what anybody thought. I was like, I don't think anyone's gonna like this, but I'm gonna do it. Yeah. And I made these songs that were like about, my grief and about things that mattered to me. And lo and behold, that's when like I said, the universe was like, okay, now this is your job, which is really funny. For a lot of reasons. First off, I obviously found it. I was like, oh, that's so cool. This is my job. I was like, oh, I'm never going to do this for a living. And then it kept like growing and growing and growing. And then, my actual job, like, I guess they got wise, corporate America, so they got wise to it and like laid me off. So I was like, oh, I guess I have to do this now. So it was like the universe is just like, in my mind, I feel like I got pushed into this where like usually people are like, can't give up the dream. I was like, I gave up the dream, and now it won't let me go.
And it's funny, you didn't give it up. I mean, I guess you'd put it on pause, but it's like it became something more genuine and authentic, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think emotionally, I gave up the idea of this being like the sides of it that it like the music sides of the job sides of it are the ones that I wanted. It wasn't the art side of it that I understood. So like emotionally, I gave up the job side of it. I gave up the like pursuit of being the musician, the personal what I define myself as, and it wasn't until I gave that side up that I got to see the music for what it was and how beautiful it was and the art, and then the other stuff is just like side stuff. Sure. It's like I sometimes I wake up with a billion emails. I'm like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
Right. Well, so I just want to. Okay, so. Let's back up a little bit.
Sorry, I ran to that point.
It's fine. It's like that's the crux of your story, I guess, in a way. But like, how did you decide on Dallas? I guess is a better question.
So, as I said, my grandpa was super religious, and religion was kind of like a really big thing for me back then. So he like took a pastoral job in like Jacksonville, Texas, which is I think like 2.5 hours away or something like that. And so the moment I graduated, I went over there and like lived with them for like a year. And I went to a show actually at the door. It was like $1 show from this band called Oh Sleepers, like a hardcore band. It was so cool. You paid $1 and there was like 1,000 kids in there.
Right.
And so I just saw it as like a music town for me. I think actually going back more now, unlocking memories, when I was even younger than that, I was in a band and we were reached out to by some like company, like, those like weird like companies that are like, we'll help you become, a thing. And so they sent us to a studio that was here in Dallas. So Dallas was always like the music town for me. I had no idea that Austin was actually the music city. I was just like, this is it. So because of like all those connect points, I was like, I gotta move to Dallas. So it kind of wrapped up into that. And then also because of the religion aspect, there was like a school down here in like Waxahachie that I went to, for a few years. And I was like, I'm going to do like music pastor stuff or whatever.
I mean, were you in one of those families where you weren't allowed to listen to other stuff?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, it was one of those where like, which is also like kind of a blessing. Again, you got to take the good with the bad. The good was now I get to, like I got into Nirvana in the last 5 years or 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And
I hear some Nirvana in it too, which is funny.
That's so funny because I'm an adult and I got to listen to it for myself and I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. It's not like me taking my dad's music,
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah, it's so funny how that industry works too. Because I mean, I was in the height of like alternative Christian music when I was a kid. Like that was like when that stuff was big.
Getting into. Okay.
Yeah. So it was basically just worse versions of like actual alternative rock. So it's like,
that's the best way I've ever heard it described.
I mean, it just is. It's just like,
Yeah.
I remember the pamphlets that I would get at Mardell Christian Bookstore, and it would be like, if you like Linkin Park, you're gonna like this. And I was like, oh, so we're just shooting fish in a barrel here. Like, we're not allowed to listen to good stuff. So
that's funny.
So yeah, that was kind of this weird, like, they were just entangled so much, and so I ended up like coming here to do college, but it was literally just so I can get out of Carlsbad, New Mexico, and like and be in a bigger city. Sure. And then I did that thing for a little bit, and then I just stayed. I had met some people and like did some bands and stuff like that. I met my now wife here, and just like this was where I kind of sowed.
When did you kind of like break away from the religious stuff?
A few years after. So I it's so funny. I started saying that I didn't take recently because I did all this stuff to be a pastor. Like I have all of the prerequisites, but yeah, I just didn't take.
So I want to pause for a second.
Yeah.
You realize you're opening yourself for fans to ask you to marry them now.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
You know what's funny? Actually, in Texas, there's no, it's pretty lawless. You could just do it.
Really?
Yeah. One of my friends married us at Lakewood Landing, me and my wife.
At Lakewood Landing?
Yeah. We just went over there, signed the paper.
Wow.
But they I like that I can say the names of places because this is a Dallas podcast.
Yeah, people
usually
know.
I'm like, oh, local dive bar. But yeah.
Yeah.
So we read the thing, and it was basically like there's no registry of pastors or like ordained ministers. Like, just if you feel like you are one, then you are one, and you can sign this paper. Yeah. So in Texas,
our buddy married us but he said he had like he mailed away somewhere for something.
He didn't even have to. It's just like he feels like he's ordained. He can. But yeah, I would definitely do that. I would.
Good to know.
I'm down.
Good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I went into the family business. I thought it was going to be the thing, and then I just kind of started to have these wrestlings and like, you know, internal stuff, and it was like a really big moment for me. I think in 2020, where like everything kind of got crazy, and that was around the time that my mom passed away. So it was just a lot of stuff where I was like, okay, I don't think this checks out with me anymore. And so it went from, you know, being confused to being angry to like coming back around, you know. Mm-hmm. So wow. It's an interesting thing how it like wrapped up together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense though. Like the loss of your mom is huge, and that's got to shake a lot of your foundation.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was my mom, and then like it kind of started. I was in that. I mean, we're in the Bible Belt here, so it was like a lot of mega churches, and so I started to see the money and the lasers and all this stuff, and I was like, I don't know about this. And then when the 2020 election happened, I was like, oh, okay, so we're just not listening to anything. And then not to like. So then that happened. I was like, okay, well, I don't know about this. And then it just started to get more and more down this like pipeline of like, I felt like my tribe had like chose against me in a way. Yeah. And then I like was, okay, what do I actually feel? What do I actually think? And then it just kind of started to snowball from there. So
were you already listening to like other stuff at this point, or is that when it started for you?
Yeah, no. So like in my adulthood, I started to listen to like other stuff because it was rebellious in my mind. It's like, well, I'm going to listen to the Beatles.
Yeah, that's so wild.
Yeah. So, and then I'm into indie music, and like I started to like get my own taste of music around that time. I remember actually feeling bad about it at first, and I was like, it just took a little bit to oh wait, this is actually just better versions of the stuff I'm listening to already.
Well, I'm guessing there was a little bit of guilt left over with like religion, because that's what it's all about.
I've frequently said a bit about that, or like that whenever you like leave religion, like that stuff doesn't leave with it, like it stays there. So but now you don't have anybody to call.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's like I often say, like in the middle of the night when I hear like something, you know, like the house settling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like a normal person would be like, there's a thief trying to get in, and in my head, because of the way I grew up, I was like, oh, it's definitely like a demon or something. Oh wow. And I don't have anybody to call, so it's like, who am I going to call? Science? Like,
wild.
All joking aside, yeah, it did stay with me for a little bit, and then I just had to unlearn all that. And like, I think music was like a haven for me in that, where it's like, oh, there's still beauty in like music, and there's beauty in like, and listening to like U2 and like listening to these like bands that are creating beautiful music that I was like, okay, so this is a whole different thing and I like it, and that's where I started to go down that path.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, and I guess you already said this, you play everything on the album or when you wrote it, or?
Yeah, everything besides drums.
Okay.
I tried drums one time. So I was always, just again, because like my grandpa was like, you got to play the drums, you got to play the guitar, you just got to be ready. Mm-hmm. So I always kind of had that skill, I guess, that was ingrained in me. But I like would constantly kind of want to do band stuff, but then I would do band stuff, and it would just be harder for me, because I just was very specific about the things I liked. So it was like kind of hard for me to be in a band.
Yeah. Okay. I guess
I don't know. I was also like a little bit of an idiot back then.
Well, I mean, you're picky.
Top.
You're like specific on what you want. I mean, I get it. I mean, like I used to know guitar players, and I'd be like, be in my band, and they'd be like, well, yeah. I'm only into Rush cover bands or something. I don't know. That actually happened to me.
So, I was so cocky.
Yeah. I feel like I was just talking about this with my wife last night. I feel like there's a level of confidence that you have to have. You can call it cocky, but you have to have it to even believe in yourself enough to put stuff out there.
Yeah.
Right?
No, totally.
So,
I totally agree with that. I think honestly, it was the sour version for me. I had to like learn how to like be confident in like myself without thinking I was like the most amazing thing on the planet, because I wasn't. I never will be. I think once you understand that, that's when you're like, okay.
Yeah. It's very freeing.
Yeah. So I did the band thing for a second, and it wasn't working out. And then I just kept, every time, even when I was in a band, I was like recording these demos, like with everything, just because I didn't want to stop. I didn't write a guitar riff and be like, I want to show it to the guys. I was like, oh, I want to do this with the song, and then like the bass will do this, and then the keys will do this, and the drums will do that, and so I just kept running into it.
That's in your head, or is this coming to you as you do it? Or?
Yeah, just as I get inspired, I just continue to like build it out. That's kind of one of my favorite things, is just getting to like see it grow. So it was just natural to go that way. I played drums on one of my songs, but I said never again after that. That's too many things.
Yeah, that's a lot going on.
Yeah, it was a song called "I Don't Hate You," and I was like, drums and guitar and bass and singing. I was like, if I'm not in the room, there's no recording happening, so it's like kind of exhausting, because usually when a drummer or like a guitar player is done, right, like that, they're done, and then it's someone else's turn, so they get to take a break, where like I'd never got to take a break that happens in the studio still, but like at least now I can have at least a moment during drum time to maybe think about the lyrics or like the overall composition. So
walk us through. So your therapist like encourages you to get back into music. You start writing these songs to like deal with your mom passing, and so like how, like what's the time frame, like what, like you're making songs, and then how long before you're putting them out in the world, and how long before the reaction?
So I made them, and in that time I went, and I used to work at a studio, so I just went and recorded them in the studio that I loved, and then they sat on my hard drive for like 6 months because I was scared of them. I felt like I kind of had a feeling Crawling was actually the song that I was like, when that song comes out, like my life will be different. Just had this like innate feeling. So I just let it sit. I was like, I don't want it to be different. I felt like the longing was a bad thing, where I was like, I'm going to get back into that like pursuit life, and like all of that bad stuff will come with it. I just wasn't ready for it. So I just let it sit. I mean, there was like a few edits that had to happen. I had to do some overdubs, and it just sat there for a while. And it wasn't until like I finished it, and I was like, okay, I guess it's time to, I did all this work, I might as well like release it. Like I have a marketing, background. So I was like, well, let's just have fun with this. And that's kind of where like things started to snowball from there. But yeah, it just sat there, just collecting dust.
That's wild.
There's a different timeline where I never released that song.
Yeah, but it's so interesting how conscious you were, even though, I mean, you probably couldn't have guessed it would be as good, go as well as it is, even, but I mean, mature is like putting it lightly, I guess, but I guess it's partially maturity, partially fear.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it was, I feel like even just for me, like even if that song wouldn't have made me have a job in music, I think it was just, I knew it was going to be different for me because like that was the precipice of me actually writing like true things that were deeply personal and like unveiling some stuff that was like very personal. I mean, my mom, I mean, we had, you know, just done her funeral like not 8 months before that. So it was like talking about some, you know, really heavy, like if you have a family member who like is, you know, passes away because of an overdose, that's like, at first it's, and especially if I had no idea that that's what it was until after like we got the toxicology and everything. So it was one of those things where we like, I was like scared to be this honest. I was scared to like deal with it, but I knew the therapy, like the therapeutic nature that it was for me. So I was very, very like vocal in the song. And then by the time I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like heavy. And I know life is going to be different after this because of the release of like letting that feeling out there. As well as knowing that there was something special, like on the music side of it. I was like, there's something special to this. There's something like honest to this that I love. And I got to enjoy that part. So it was just like a culmination of those two feelings. And then, yeah, I was so thankful when it did happen and like to hear people like who connected with it because of how meaningful it was to them. It was just something I realized at that moment, like drawing back to the religious nature, I was like, that was more like, I feel like I did more for, like quote unquote ministry in that song than I ever did like trying to be a pastor or trying to do anything. I was like, oh, this is how you help people.
Is
like,
that because of the way people took the song? And
yeah.
That
it was like I mean, to this day, I'm still having conversations with people pretty constantly. Or like my inbox will get, DMs will get flooded with just people being like, oh, I heard that song and, you know, I struggled with the same thing, or my family has been going through the same thing. And I just realized like, this is how you help someone. Like if you turn it away from like the glamour of being like, look at me, I'm the musician, I'm so famous, I'm, you know, because I play a guitar, like I'm special or something, you know. You pull away from that and you just realize like, here's my human experience. Here's something that matters to me. I think people connect with that on a deeper level and they can pull it and it becomes a part of their experience because it helps them. I know like a lot of times when I hear songs of people who have like similar experiences to me, it helps me. It like does a lot of good to me because I feel like I'm not alone for a second. And as I was saying, like, that's when I was like, oh, this is how this makes sense to me. Like the glamour doesn't matter. It's what makes sense to me is like the goodness and like connecting with humans on a fundamental level.
I feel like it's the religious upbringing and not the religion, but the spiritual nature. And I mean, and also makes me think of like, you know, artists don't always look at themselves as being in service of the community in some way. And when they do, I feel like this is what happens. It's like, you know, if we're not doing it for ourselves, but we're doing it for the greater good. I mean, yeah, you did it for yourself to get it out, but to share it is the part that I think is important, you know?
No, totally. I think it's just removing the glamour a little bit, removing the like rock star stuff. I think music would be pure if they never told you could have a job doing it. You know? Although I think it's funny that you came in a three-piece leisure suit, just like nobody can see you. I'm just letting you know it's weird that you dress that way. Joking. Yeah. Did it?
No, I mean, I will say this too. My wife is picky. I put it on and she was like, what's this?
Oh, thank you.
Really, I mean, I don't think we were focusing on lyrics. It was more the sound. I mean, like I saw Nirvana
totally
like, live.
Wow.
Like, I mean, I've seen the Pumpkin while they're still around, but it's like I'm
very jealous of that experience.
I'm older than you too. You wouldn't have been able to see
but
him.
Either way, like I would say I have this conversation with people often. It was like, if you can go back in time and watch like an artist, that Nirvana 100%.
So I'll just because you care, it was at the Forum, LA Forum.
Oh my gosh.
And Bobcat Goldthwait was like the MC.
Oh my God.
And Butthole Surfers played first. I found $80 walking into the show, so my show was free.
Oh my gosh.
It was the second to last show they played before he died. and in America, I should say. And then it was great. They played like everything you would have wanted them to play. And then they came back and did everything else in the encore. Then they came back and they threw everything on stage. Like they just threw their amps around and broke every single thing. It was it was magic.
Untouchable.
Really. And you know, like I saw the Who in videos, but to see it live the way they went, you know, like Kurt's let his Marshall rocks and he just throws the whole rig over the stage. It was great.
What a world. You know, that was that I listened to Heart Shaped Pod entirely. And that they were talking about those experiences and I was just like, that what a world to be in. And then obviously we're in the famous district where the trees incident happened. So it's just, I would have, I'm so jealous.
It's cool. It was cool. You know, I guess I did, by the time I saw them, we knew what they were, but I remember when they came out and it was just like, I remember they had a quote. It was like, we're not heavy metal. We're just heavy. And that's what it was, you know,
just upsetting the balances. The way that the melody, like I think that's one of the reasons why that particular like brand of grunge has stuck with society is the melody is just incredible. Like the melodies are actually like great. It's not grunge music for grunge music's sake. It's good music that happens to be grunge. And I think that's why, I mean, even when Grohl went off and started doing his own thing, like they just understood songs so well that they could do anything. And that band is just one of those, I would say like a light post or a lighthouse for me, where I'm like, that's how you do it. Like it doesn't matter you know what genre you're in. It's like if you write a great song, the great song is going to be the great song, and then the textures will like carry it past that point. And like it's been huge.
Who else besides Nirvana like do you feed on?
I try to listen to obviously I'll listen to like just a huge range of stuff. Like right now, like Fontaine's DC is a band that is just, I think I'm just fascinated with
people are really into them.
They're so good.
They're gonna come. They're coming. I'm gonna shoot them.
Oh, that's so sick. I'm really jealous of that as well. I think they'll be around in between tour dates, so I might get to go watch them. I didn't buy a ticket yet because I didn't know if I was going to be on tour yet. So now I think I'm going to be able to go watch that show, which is just, that band is incredible. As far as like the newer bands right now that I think are amazing, but I try to listen to kind of the innovators, you know, with Smiths and and like also like the Modest Mouses and like the even like early Coldplay and like Oasis and bands like that I feel like tapped into something, even for a short time. They like tapped into something really beautiful. That is like, that's where I like kind of spend a lot of my time. And then when I'm not digesting that, I'll just be randomly listening to like a lot of hip hop and just stuff. I don't know. I just love innovators. I love people who are just tapping into some interesting zeitgeist, I guess. And then I guess on the like quote unquote emo side, like the My Chemical Romance is another band that like you just like look at that and you're like, oh, you're not like you're an entirely different thing, you know. And those are the bands that I just have been like fascinated with.
Like Dallas bands that you're aware of that you're into, or
not like local bands, or just like general Dallas stuff. Well, there's a cool like little bit of a local scene. I was out of it at first, but like there's some bands like Jockey is a band from here. They're out of Denton-ish in this area, and I think they're just so cool. They played with me one time, and I just really love them. And then out in Fort Worth, there's this like really great shoegaze band. It's huge, called Trauma Ray, and like everybody loves them. So I've done a couple shows with them, and they're just like so good. So cool too. Those shoegaze bands, man, I'm not cool enough to be in those circles. Every time I'm around them, I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Let's go back to like, so you put the music out and people responded. Like, how did that work? Like, it was on TikTok that it blew up, or what happened with that?
That was one spot. So it's funny, the TikTok is such a part of my story, but it's only because of the anonymity it brought me. I knew that I didn't want to pursue music, or like I knew that like I was known as the band guy, like by a lot of my friends, because I had done it for so long. So it's like, even if I ran into a friend in town that maybe I hadn't seen in a while, they're always like, you still doing music? You still doing music? And like hitting them with the no was like a point of pride for me. It's like, nah, not anymore. Cause it was like,
they like didn't expect that.
I mean,
at
when
all.
you're like 29, 30, it's kind of sad. You're like, oh, you're still doing the band thing, huh? And you're like, yeah, here's the flyer to my show.
I did that until my 40s. Dude.
I mean, it's a noble thing, but for some reason in my own life, I was just like getting sad to like, I don't know, have a Three Links is like a venue that like I would play and it'd be like 10 people there at tops, or like, you know, that draw straws to see who has to play last kind of thing. Yeah. So when people were like, would ask me that, I would just say no. So I enjoyed the TikTok thing because like no one was on it. I didn't have to follow my friends. I didn't even like link my number to, you know, you can link your number and then find people, like it'll find people for you. I didn't do that. I stayed away from it and just did it as itself. And it was fun for me because I got to play my guitar in front of video, and then people would comment and like who I didn't know, and they liked the music for music's sake, and it just got really exciting from that point on. And then I realized like that was a really real community builder. Like you could build a community of people who care about you that aren't like people that you don't have to like get your friends in, and then your friends may tell their friends and so on and so forth. Like that wasn't, I could just be me over there, and they didn't care that I was, you know, on like some working stiff outside of this thing. They just liked the music for the music. And like, that's kind of how it started to envelop from there. And now it's funny. It's become a part of my story, and it's like becoming a part of my life. And like, it's in some ways it's amazing. And I'm really thankful for it, because that's how I anyone who comes to a show is like, oh, I saw your video on like Instagram or like TikTok or any of those things. But some of the other, you know, now that I'm in this side of the thing, some of the other bigger bands are kind of like, oh, it's just like the TikTok guy. I'm like, well, kind of, but also
I mean, it's valid in a way, not with you, because you actually have the chops and the years of experience. But you know, like at ArtCo, I remember there'd be like, I'd come in to shoot a show and somebody like, oh yeah, like I was like, why is it sold out? I've never heard of this band, and why do they not seem to know how to play anything? So it happens that you just get that instant hit, but but you were playing like, so I didn't really, I guess I could have researched a little bit better, but
you're good. You did great.
You basically were not just putting your song up and it was getting picked up. You were doing like interactive kind of stuff.
Yeah. That was the only way that I thought I could do it. It was just like playing little riffs and like testing and having fun. Like, oh, do people like it when I play this guitar in this room? Do people like it when I do this? And it was just fun. I mean, I like, these companies had spent so much money to teach me how to do marketing for like companies I didn't care about that I was like, well, let's just try it here. Let's see what this is like.
That's amazing. That's kind of the thing. It's like, if you can, as an artist, you collect all these skills from not being an artist.
Oh yeah.
And then if you can put them into your art and make it all come together, which is what you did, it's amazing.
That's my usually I get the question like, what would you tell someone starting out, like what to do? I'm like, get a normal job that is adjacent to your like, if it's learning how to do taxes, like that's huge. Like learn taxes. If it's marketing, like get a job in marketing and do that for a little bit so you can understand it, because like now no one can BS me about like, oh, we spent this much on this show. I'm like, okay, well, show me where the data is. And it's like, oh shit, like, they don't understand. And so it's one of those things where like, I'm so thankful that I had that skill, because now here it makes more sense, and I understand like, oh, this is why this works. This is why visual storytelling works. So and it's still, I mean, it's still a gamble, but it's still like, it feels like less and less of a gamble as you progress, because it's pretty consistently done it for every single that I've done, you know.
Maybe you can take it, help me like do some marketing for this podcast.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's I've always just like said that you just got to go where the people are, you know. We are all like, we just open our phone, open up Instagram Reels, and just start like dumb scrolling, you know. That's just what happens. Doom scrolling. And that's just what happens. That's what anybody does. So like, to push against the grain is not worth it. Just go where they are. Like that's where they already are. So Smart. People who like music will find music. So be where people who like music are. And it just so happens that those are the apps. So I stayed there.
No, I mean, but even with all of that, it's still incredible that you're heard in this day. Like, I think, what is it, 60,000 songs a day go uploaded to Spotify or something crazy. It's like, I heard that it's more in a day than like all of 1985 or something
so crazy.
Yeah. And it's like, I've said it before. I'm happy that I'm not pursuing music because I just don't know. I don't know what I would even do.
It's so hard. Yeah.
But it's like you seem to be like making your way through it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you just have to be thankful for the community that's there no matter what. But I am very aware because I have played the Monday shows at 3 Links to 3 people.
Yeah, so you've done your time.
Yeah, it's I know what that feels like. So that's why I'm like more thankful every time there's, you know, someone who's just around who's thankful to be here. That I know I keep bringing that venue, but that venue was like such a core memory for me because that was like my first after the TikTok thing, you know, happened and I booked the show. Because like a label was going to check me out. And I was like, well, I have a show, you know, a headlining show here. And I was just telling like all my friends, hey, you have to come. Like we can't have it be empty for these people. And so they're used to, at the time, like shows don't sell out for me. Like we'll be fine. We'll show up, you know, we'll get some dinner and then we'll walk in and be nice to our friend for 30 minutes, you know? And all of my friends couldn't get in because it sold out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was this crazy experience where like all of my friends got stuck out. Friends and family got stuck out. I had to plead with the door person. I was like, hey, like my wife's parents had come from like out of town, or like Melissa to come down. I was like, can we please just like make an exception for these people? Because no one bought tickets because we had no idea that that's what was going to happen. Yeah. And that was this like crazy experience where like I've done the show to no one in that room, and I did the show where like my friends couldn't get in because they thought that it was going to be.
That's wow.
And it's all because of like this community that accepted me. Yeah. On TikTok and Instagram.
Well, and also, so this is another thing that I'm just occurring to me. So like, is the local TikTok scene like?
I don't know. I guess enough local people made their way in.
I mean, have you played in other cities? Are you seeing this happening elsewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, like it's crazy because at first I was like, whoa, it worked in Dallas, and then I went to like San Antonio, and I was like, oh wow, it worked in San Antonio and like Chicago, and like, oh my god, it's you know, pretty consistently a lot of places, and then you start to realize that these people kind of aren't even, a lot of the times they're not even part of a scene. They're kind of just going for the first time. Like, hey, I don't listen to this music, but your song, you know, popped up on my thing, and then it was like the normal person's well,
that was another thing I was going to ask you. Like, you've been described as a lot of things. Do you have something that you describe yourself as genre wise?
I used to do the Southwest emo thing. I thought that was cheeky and fun. I would say like realistically it's more alt rock. Like I love making up genres and stuff just because it's interesting. So like Chicano heavy is another one that I'm just like but I would say just like alt rock now. Alt rock.
Chicano heavy. Is there some sort of like your heritage, like your Hispanic heritage you play? Okay.
Well, it's just important to me. Like people who look like me hadn't done music like this growing up. Like there wasn't a lot of people who looked like me that were in bands. That was it. Yeah. I think I mean specifically in the like alternative press like emo scene that I was into growing up, there was like Pierce the Veil, which had Vic Fuentes as the lead singer, and like he was kind of honestly the gateway for me to be able to get girls to like me growing up because they all liked him, and I was like, oh, I just dress like that, and then that'll work.
That's funny.
So I remember that being the like people who look like me didn't do this, so I am proud of that aspect of it. And I mean that's also the thing I think is like showing up for me is that like anywhere you can get a good taco, that's where the ticket sales do really well for me. It's just the weird. I've had lots of people come up to me and like say like, hey, you know, keep doing this because we get it, like we understand like people who look like us don't get to do this normally, so like please keep pushing it. And I in no way think that I'm like, you know, pushing the culture forward or anything. I'm just thankful to be a part of the culture in general, and thankful that like this is me, this is something that matters to me, and like I'm gonna show it. I try to just like showcase as much of like Mexican culture as I possibly can because I think we're sick. I think we're just so dope. Just everything that we do is really cool, so I try to showcase it as much as possible. Cool. But yeah, that is a big thing for me, and I try to like stay in those bounds because I think like I said, I don't think enough people have done this. Now it's entirely different. Now I mean there's a lot of like Latino fronted bands, and I mean it's huge, but I think like when I was growing up it wasn't. And I love being a part of it.
That's cool.
Everything
could be alright if you married me under neon lights. King, cowboy, I'm the king, cowboy. This move out west, get in fights, raise some kids that hate their lives. Say I love you every night, drift apart until we die. King, cowboy, I'm the king, cowboy. King, cowboy, I'm the king, cowboy. If no roses for us, if no roses, if no roses for us, no roses. I'm the king. Yeah, I'm the king. I'm the king. Cowboy, 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 I'm
So you play everything, and then what? You just kind of hire guys. You have like regular guys. How does that work?
Yeah, I try to fill the live band with my friends.
Okay.
Because I mean, going on tour with a bunch of strangers is kind of exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting either way.
It's true. Yeah, that's one of the ones where talking about wanting this to be my like career for so long. I now will be on the week 3 of the 6-week tour. I'm like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
I haven't seen my bed in so long. I don't even know what my house smells like.
I saw your post where you're like, why did I just book my own head? Like, is it too soon to book my own tour?
Yeah.
How are you like really nervous? I mean, or you're just kind of joking?
Sometimes it's a little bit further the narrative. Obviously, it's really scary in general. It's so stressful to headline your own rooms in general. Like it's just so stressful. I would prefer to be the 3 of 4 or the 2 of 3 because you don't have to worry about it. But
that's not where the big money is, though, man.
Yeah, it's true. If you can sell it's the move. It's still, I'm in this place still where it's like you can do 150 tickets in Chicago and then go to Indianapolis and do like 30.
Yeah,
like it's this weird
sure.
I don't understand.
Well, and Dallas is like one of the hardest places to get people to show up. So even selling out 3 links is a big deal to me.
It was huge. Yeah, I was really thankful. And like the Dada shows are always amazing. Every time I get to do it, shout out Spoon for like putting that together.
So that's the February 6th.
Yeah.
That's
the Jambaloo.
Going to be like a few days after this comes out. So
cool.
Yeah.
Come on out. It's free.
Yeah.
Exactly. The fact that they did that is so cool.
It's very cool. It's still wrapping my head around it, and I hope it goes really well. I hope it continues.
Yeah, every time, every year.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? Like, what do you have besides the tour? What else do you have coming up?
A record.
Yeah.
So I have this first leg. We're extending the leg. By the time this comes out, that it'll already be announced. But I'm extending the leg to both. East Coast and West Coast, so I have like just a full
many shows all together?
I actually don't know that answer.
Okay.
It's probably like 21 or 22.
Yeah, that's close
something
enough.
along that.
That's a lot of shows.
Yeah, so West Coast and East Coast. I think we're not doing the South or the Midwest. Just hitting the bigger markets for this one. I do that, and then the album comes out in May. And just kind of doing more of that stuff. Right now, it's I'm still in that season where you just kind of like twiddle your thumbs and hope a bigger band takes you out with them on the support side of things.
Sure.
So hopefully that'll
something
come out.
that like you've done that you have people like looking at you for?
Yeah, I have. So my agent will submit for a lot of stuff. Like I've done like quite a bit of support stuff, not as much as usual. Usually by this level, like you're doing a lot, like mostly support stuff, and you're not headlining your own rooms. But thankfully I have that kind of in my back pocket where like if I can't do the 1,000 cap room, I can do the 150 to 200 cap room by myself. And that's like a viable side thing that I can do if like a tour doesn't work out. Like in March, I had this tour that I was like up for, and then it didn't happen. So then we did this, which ended up working out really well, because though I felt like it was a little bit of a gamble, it's like now we're like building for the album, which is very exciting for me.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it's coming together nicely.
You're like in a really good spot for all of this. And I mean, now that I've talked to you, it's like, I really want you to do well.
Thank
you're
you.
a good dude. And it's like, we got everything. There was anything I'm missing. I think I have all these notes that I haven't looked at once.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, feel free. I'm having a good time. This is a blast.
Like,
by the way, you've done a fantastic job of doing your research. You'd be surprised how many times people are just like,
yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes on the show. We didn't talk about Mike Sapone.
What
Mike
a
Sapone?
dream producer. Yeah.
How did that come about?
So it's kind of funny, when Crawling happened, I reached out to him because I really loved the stuff he did with a band called Brand New, who since they've kind of had their controversies and such, but like growing up, those were the records that like really mattered to me. And I was like, if I can make a record with that guy, that would be insane, because I think like that record really shaped me. Devil and God Rages Inside Me was like just this album that I was just amazed by. And actually, that's an album I got to sneak by my family because of the name. Them in Taking Back Sunday. I was like, you see?
Yeah.
So it was one of those albums that was just core for me. So I looked it up, and I was like, oh, maybe him. Maybe I could get someone, because I'd never been produced by like a producer. Usually, it's just like an engineer who's in there, and friends and things along those lines.
Sure.
So I reached out to him in an email, just straight up, and he replied. He's like, I normally don't reply to these. I listen to your song. I like it. I was like, that's great. I went to the label. I was like, hey, I want to make a record with him. And it was to no avail. They didn't say anything. They were just really quiet. I was like, okay. So then when I had a manager I used to work with, he like knew of him. And when I finished the first batch of songs, I was due to do an EP. And so they were like, who do you want to work with? And I was like, Mike Sapone. And so fortunately the manager knew him too, and was like, that's a really good idea. And then that's how the connection happened. And we finally got to make the EP together. Then once the EP was done, I was like, we're going to make a record. And he was like, sure we are. And I was like, yeah, we are. And then we made the record, and it was a dream. He's just, it's crazy to be around someone who has made the records that you love, but it's crazy to just be in that space for so long. Like I'd never, when I was making the record that's coming out, I was in Massachusetts for a month, just by myself with me and Mike there.
That's crazy.
It was so crazy to do that. And then we did another week in El Paso, doing a few more singles. And that was just like the having someone who really like, respects the art that much, and you get to be in the space, and just that space alone for that long is just so important. And I just like walked away being like having a whole new respect for making albums, because I just walked into those rooms every day being like, I shouldn't be here. What is this?
That's wild. So like you're like, maybe let's just talk about that difference between like, I'm just gonna do, because when you're like, people don't know, if they're not musicians that are listening, a lot of times if you're doing your own stuff, like maybe you have someone turning the knobs, but there's not a producer. Like that's somebody coming in and putting their thumbprint on, like, how exactly was that to
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. We even like we would start to have these debates about like the song structure, and like this song needs a bridge. I'm like, it doesn't need a bridge. I notoriously hated bridges, so I was like, the middle eight is always just a frustrating section of song for me.
That's funny.
So we would just have these like discussions about it, and it was crazy to just ultimately having people who like cared about it that much, or cared about when you're by yourself, you like get a guitar tone and that's it, versus like, hey, let's A and B it till we know that we have the best possible thing that we can, or you're not saying this in a way that has the emotion we think it should have. Let's do that. And like having someone be able to kind of filter through it and get you to is another thing, because I have done those like $150 recordings where you have the guy who's the producer, and he just doesn't get you and just like kind of pushes his own narrative onto you. So having this level of stuff and like with someone who's made records that you just love it was like an entirely different world, and
you had to give him more respect. Like it was like an ego buster almost, right?
Yeah. Well, I almost honestly it went the other way, where like I felt like I had to make it once I was on with him, or once he was like down, I was like, I have to make a record that's worthy of someone like this. Like I'm not going to waste this resource, which has kind of been a narrative, like a thing that I've been playing, or a narrative that I've been like playing in my head lately. Generally is because like, when you get older, you start to realize like how finite everything is. So I'm like, why would I not use this as much as I possibly can? So like having someone like that, I was like, I have to write the best song I can possibly write to be able to use that resource for all it's worth. And like that's kind of where it ended up.
This is one of those times, because I often think that a band, like the combined energy of that is a better thing. But like with this, if you had another person in the mix, it probably wouldn't have got there, maybe. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are pros and cons to everything. I think this is really good because I can do the band thing with like 100 people, for every song. It's like, I want a song that sounds like this, so I'm going to write with someone who writes like that, or I'm going to work with a producer who sounds like that. And then it stretches your mind and grows you in different ways to where you can do your thing in different ways. And I think that was one of the like key differences between like, I operate in this world where it's in between like the rock band and the pop star, where like the pop star, like they get the song written for them and then that's that. And then the rock band's like, we'll never write with another person or do another producer, like we do it our way, and that's that alone. I like being in this middle zone where it's like, actually let's collaborate, like hey Mr. Pop writer, like let's sit in a room together and see if like your thing can work with my thing, and we make a thing, and I get to put my thumbprint on it and you get to put your thumbprint on it, and then we take it to Mike Sapone, this like amazing producer, and make a big album that I would have never been able to make without him, because I don't understand why you put the mic under the snare. Right. I don't understand those things, and how to run a big room like that, and to feel comfortable in a big room like that, how to make an artist feel like he's at home. I mean, I'm some like punk kid from like Carlsbad, New Mexico. I have no business being in these rooms, and like being able to be there and be made like this is your space is an entirely like, it's a skill in and of himself. And I was really thankful for that. I'm curious in the future, because this is someone you idolize, and like he was, your music is in his wheelhouse, but I wonder, like working with a different producer, how that would look, or like, I don't know, maybe it's grow and your sound will change and you'll need a different, you know. No, I agree. I think honestly, I've always just kept up the idea that you just kind of like tinker with stuff and test stuff and see what works. I'm sure as I like change a little bit of the tonality, it'd be good to try someone else for a second. And I think that's like I keep saying, it's the beauty of this thing is like you can try different things. And so like, that didn't work, let's try that again.
Like literally playing.
And I think that's what it's all about. Is like, I never want to lose the modularity of this whole thing. Even with like the live show, as we were talking about before, like I have all my friends who I get to play with, and like some of them are better at certain things than others. So it's like, if this tour makes more sense to do a 3-piece than a 4-piece, then we're going to do a 3-piece, and then we can figure out how this works. Or like, if this makes sense to do a 4-piece, and then I play guitar sometimes and sing sometimes. Like it's so modular. And I love that because
Yeah.
I get to just keep it interesting and like you never fall into the ruts of things.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun that way.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it sounds great. I mean, let's maybe close it with the name Slow Joy. It's a great name.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah. All good things happen slow. I had to remind myself that good things take time. You have to really grow into those because at the time, everything that was changing was usually for the worst. That was 2020. So it was like just some terrible stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was for the worst. I just realized I said 2020 election earlier. I meant the 2016 election.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I won't be able to fix it, but we'll understand it, or maybe I'll fix it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Nobody
either way.
if somebody catches that, they're thank you for listening so intently.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, the one that was terrible, that was the one that did. But anyway, back to what I was saying now. I just had to remind myself that all good things take time, and or like a lot of the time, like good things take time. So like it's a slow joy, and like now I play with that all the time. Like even the album, when by the time it comes out, I think we'll have already announced it. But it's like a joy so slow at times I don't think it's coming is the name of the album. So it's just this constant like reminder. Like sometimes it takes a while to get there. You know,
I like that. It's a good concept, and it's a great band. And like check it out, Slow Joy. I know there's the show at Dada, right, on the 6th of February.
Yes, free.
And it's free, and there's going to be, if you're not in Dallas, you can check out Slow Joy. But thanks, Esteban, for coming down.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'd like to thank Esteban Flores for being my guest today. Slow Joy is pretty amazing. You've got to check them out. They're playing Club Dada on February 6th as part of Jambalaya, and you can check out the rest of his music. We'll have the links available. Thank you to the Deep Ellum Community Center for letting us record there. Theme song, The Place to Be by Electric Ants. You can catch the Dallas Famous podcast every Sunday at 1 o'clock on Deep Ellum Radio, and then Wednesday on all the podcast platforms. Please like, subscribe, enjoy, share, all the good things. We'll see you next time.